Hello, everyone, and welcome back into the final show here at the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast. And for our second segment, before I get into it, I do want to remind you, if you're just coming in, that even though I am leaving, there are still a lot of talented veteran people with the GSMC Sports Network doing incredible things. We talked about Jeremy Lapidus and Kenneth Grunfelder will be the guys to go to if you want to hear about all things sports, football, basketball, hockey, what have you. They are established veterans here with the network. And if you want a little bit more new blood, a guy who talks all things football and does it well, Matt Quinn is our new GSMC football podcast host. So check them out. Even as I am leaving, support the network. It is genuinely appreciated. I guarantee it. So thank you in advance. But without further ado, let's get into our second segment of today's show, talking about the 5 most desperate teams in win-now mode who feel like they need to win a World Series in the next 3 to 5 years to have any optimism about the current runs they are on. Now, what I mean by this is, some of them have opened their championship window fairly recently. Some might be seen as closing rapidly. But these 5 teams have all, in many different ways, defined the past decade or so in Major League Baseball and could define it in the long-term future. And if they don't win a championship within the window I'm projecting for them, then it would be seen as a large disappointment by everyone on this list. So without further ado, let's just jump right into this segment. Starting off with the number 5 team, there are going to be a lot of teams from the NL East on this list. And this team is starting to become very, very eerily similar to a team that actually won a World Series and then did not do anything at the turn of the 2010s after. We're talking about the Philadelphia Phillies here. And the Phillies are a team that seemingly have to break through within the 13 years of the Bryce Harper era. Because if they don't, Bryce Harper would be a fantastic player, one of the best players of his generation, but he would be without a ring. And so they have the nucleus right now to contend in the NL at the very least. They have Schwarber, Real Muto, Turner, Alec Bohm coming into his own finally. But if they don't want to be like the 2008 to say 2012 Philadelphia Phillies, who at the very least have a ring to back up their run of dominance, they have to find a way to break through. It's only going to get a little bit more difficult as the NL East gets better. And don't forget about the team we mentioned before, the LA Dodgers. This is a team that I feel has all the tools, all the traits, everything required to be a World Series contender. But time is running out on that Bryce Harper contract. Before you know it, Bryce Harper is no longer going to be a Philadelphia Philly, and he may just retire after his contract expires. So you have to win a World Series in the next 7 years at the very least if I'm Philly, in order for me to not think of this as a failed project. They've been so close, but they've seen teams pass them over the years. They've seen the Padres, the Dodgers potentially, the Braves and Mets now coming up behind them in the NL East. Try and surpass them, and they have in recent years. If the Phillies want to stay within their championship window, they're going to have to produce, and everyone has to support Bryce Harper in his chase for that elusive ring. So the Philadelphia Phillies coming in at number 5 on this list. Coming in at number 4, the New York Yankees, a team that were ever so close to picking up their first World Series title since the late 2000s. But the Yankees, to me, are a team that could be on the fence with, that I personally could be on the fence with in terms of needing to win a World Series. Because this is a team that's now entering new horizons, maybe unfamiliar territory to a lot of people in their fan base. I genuinely believe with the signings they made, they're going to be a much more defensive-minded team. You don't sign guys like Paul Goldschmidt and Cody Bellinger right now, at the very least, within their careers, to be your power hitters. You sign them because you have a young nucleus with your infield and outfield defensively that needs that support. And these two are veteran guys who have won gold gloves in the very recent past and still have enough defensively to contribute to your team whilst also mentoring these young guys. So I'm not too worried about the Yankees' approach. What I am worried about is the fact that, is this the right move for them? Is this the right path forward? Because right now, I look at this lineup offensively. I think maybe Jazz Chisholm Jr. can be a power guy. Cody Bellinger might still have a little bit of pop left. But you're going to have to rely on a lot of these younger guys like Volpe and Dominguez to contribute to that success offensively as well. Because obviously you know what Judge can do. But now it's going to be about this younger generation stepping up and adding potency to the batting order. Because I love this Yankees team analyzed its loss in the World Series and said we have to get better defensively and went out and made those signings. But you have to think that these are the Bronx Bombers and they win with power. So where will the runs come from? That's the only worry to me. But I do feel that the Yankees could be a team that fall off this list because they seem like a team primed and ready to go to win a World Series, if you know what I mean. So the Yankees, I'm kind of on the fence about because I'm not necessarily certain this strategy will work out, but I am tempted by it because the Yankees realizing they don't necessarily have to be the quote-unquote Bronx Bombers all the time necessarily. They realize that what these young players might need is a little bit of defensive help. And that's fine by me. But it has to translate into wins and ultimately World Series titles eventually. But maybe not as immediately as some of these teams with championship windows closing rapidly coming up that really, really have a necessity to win. Like the Padres. Actually, the Braves. The Braves are a team that I feel definitely need to win now, before it's too late in the NL East. And they just need to hope that Ronald Acuna Jr. is healthy for most of this. Because if he isn't, then they are still a very solid team. Even one of the best teams in baseball without him. But he is the lifeblood, the heartbeat of this roster. And so I feel that this Braves team are a team that really are centered around the health of all their best players. Because I feel that there could start to be a little bit of regression to the older guys in this lineup. Maybe guys like Arcia, maybe guys like Olsen might have down years. They're still having incredible down years, but that might change down the line once the NL East really is perhaps the most competitive division in all of baseball. But the reason that the Braves are a little bit higher than the Yankees is because, to me, they're all in on these guys. And if they don't deliver, then that's where I feel there might have to be a little bit of a rebrand of Atlanta. And so they have to rely on that nucleus of one specific player to sustain them. And really sustain this locker, most importantly, because if not, they can lose ground in the NL East very quickly in the short and long-term future. So they have to find a way to break through and win a World Series. But let's talk with the other NL East team on this list, the final NL East team on this list, the New York Mets. And it's one simple thing that has changed the dynamic of how we're going to view the Mets. Juan Soto. Because if Juan Soto were in a Met, this would be a very promising team who overachieved last year. But I still think expectations would be tempered in Queens. Just because they are a talented roster and Steve Cohen has the money, but they wouldn't have had a high-profile guy. Because Lindor, yes, is on a long contract, and he is seen as one of the vocal leaders of this team. But Juan Soto alters the entire perception, not just of this team, but of the clubhouse, the player dynamics, the power dynamics of this team. So if this experiment doesn't work, and the young players who you also are investing in don't live up to their standard, then that's where you could run into trouble. That's why they are very high on this list, because it's not just about Juan Soto and the power dynamics he is bringing. It's about the young guys as well, because Juan Soto is only part of the plan, right? The plan that both Cohen and Stearns have is not just to sign high-profile signings off the street. Their job is to ensure that the younger players don't feel left out either, and that they have a place to grow and mature as well, just to add a little bit more depth to this Mets roster. So that's why, though, I'm a little tentative to put them number one, just because I feel that Juan Soto wants to be here, but it's the younger players who I'm a little less concerned about, if you want to be completely blunt with me. Because we've already seen some young players struggle for the Mets. And I'm not necessarily certain it's to the extent where they're not going to contribute, because they're going to be given chances to. We're already seeing Brett Beatty come alive in spring training. But what I am concerned about is this new power dynamic going to feel like something where the younger guys feel left out, and Juan Soto, Lindor, and Alonso are the headliners. So that's where I'm kind of concerned with the Mets, and that's why this is so high on the list, but not as high as the Milwaukee Brewers. This is a team whose championship window, let's be honest, is rapidly closing. But with this new younger crop of players, they actually truly believe that they might have a shot to still contend, at the very least in the NL Central. Because let's be real, the NL Central's not necessarily going to be the best division. But the Milwaukee Brewers are starting to become a team where you just become too frustrated by them. And no matter what they do, whether it be invest in their farm system, try and bolster your rotation, and things of that magnitude, they just don't feel like they're gaining ground. They feel like they're in this purgatory of contending for the wild card and getting eliminated in the wild card. But there is hope in the youth. Turang and Frelick can be incredible players. Myers can be an incredible pitcher. So they have guys, Churio, really growing into his own last season. They have guys who can do what is needed to get this team to the promised land. But I don't know, in this loaded NL, it's going to be sustainable enough over the next 5 to 10 years. So we're going to have to see with Milwaukee Brewers, but that's why they top this list, because they've already disappointed thus far over the past decade or so. And now, with new players, they're going to have to retry all over again. So we're going to see if Milwaukee can do that, but they'll just about do it for this segment. Coming next, we're going to be transitioning over to the NHL, my final ever power rankings. Who will sit atop them right after this short break.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having